Joining us now is Tyson Jominy, Vice President of Data and Analytics at J.D. Power, for a look at how manufacturers, retailers, and consumers are performing in the U.S. new vehicle market. Tyson, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me again, Jim.
Sure. So it's kind of crazy out there right now. And so let's start with the manufacturers. Where do things stand with regard to revenue and profitability?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of good news for manufacturers. In fact, they probably are having the best news of anyone in 2023. And the good news for them is that transaction prices continue to go up. Sales are rebounding. So when we put those two numbers together and estimate what does consumer expenditure look like, how many dollars are consumers spending on cars, it's a record all time for the first 6 months of the year.
Really? Wow. Yeah. Okay. So it's going to be a good year then. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, transaction prices are up about $1,400 from last year, up 30% from 2019 levels, combined with lower volumes than, of course, 2019. We're not back to where we were, but we are doing better than a year ago. We're looking at an industry now that's getting into the 15.4 million total sales. So things are starting to come back from the lows of COVID, from the supply chain crisis. That's all behind us. And now automakers are having a tremendous 2023.
That's great. You hear a lot less about chasing the SAR of this 17.5 million like we used to, and really more about profitability. That seems to be the buzzword in the last couple of years, is how much money these dealerships are actually making. As you know, when every dealer was on this race to hit these crazy numbers that the OEMs would put in front of them, they were giving the cars away, and there wasn't a whole lot of money to be made on them. But now that's a different story. So 15.5 million vehicles at good profits just makes perfect sense for everybody, right?
Yeah, I mean, for automakers, just on incentives alone, incentives are down 14 billion with a B year to date. I mean, and that's pure profit. That is profit for all the automakers essentially to split. Because consumers are spending that much more without incentives, which are typically just a straight drain on cash and profitability. So it's very profitable for them, but as you mentioned, it's also very profitable for the retailers. They're having a tremendous 2023 as well.
That's right. How does it compare to 2022 in terms of profitability for dealers?
Yeah, I mean, 2022 will go down. That'll be the year we're going to be talking about almost for the rest of our lives, particularly with all of our friends in the retail channel, because that year it can't be beat. So we are down slightly from last year, but the good news is that 2023, from a profitability, is still looking like it'll be the #2 year all time. It's just not as good as last year, but tremendous. I mean, way better than pre-COVID levels. Back then we would have seen profits of about $9 billion in the channel. Right now, I mean, we're seeing profits of $22 billion through the first 6 months of the year.
My gosh, that's fantastic. And are dealers seeing a lot more inventory now? I think the average daily supply is, depending on the manufacturer, I think between maybe 45 and 60 days. Am I correct on that?
Well, it's certainly different by manufacturer and in different pockets. I mean, we are starting to get back up, but we are seeing a plateau-ish of inventory on the ground. I mean, we've been seeing inventory of about 1.2 million units on the ground for several months in a row. To many listeners, that may sound lower than they've heard in other places in the media. That's because we're looking strictly at the retail environment. Automakers have been building more cars, but they're sending a lot of those to the fleet channel. So when automakers report what their inventory numbers are, they're including all channels. When you look at just what's going on the ground with retail, there's only about 1.2 million, and that's helping to keep prices high and keep the profitability high for retailers as well.
Consumers' monthly payments are at record levels. Is affordability a factor that threatens new vehicle sales?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to deny where prices are for monthly payments. So, retailers are doing well, manufacturers are doing well. Well, the third leg of the stool here are the consumers. And that's sort of the one place in the market right now where we're starting to see some of those stresses pile up. Monthly payments now are well over $700 a month. And that's prime. It's not up significantly from last year. They were 696. Now they're right around 720. So they've gone up this year. But compared to 2019, I mean, we're seeing increases of $150 a month for monthly payments. So, we've been talking about these great transaction prices that the automakers are getting, and it leads to good profits for dealers, but someone has to pay for that, and that's ultimately the consumers.
Yeah.
And where do we see that? I mean, to your point, we're seeing a lot of the younger consumers, lower credit quality consumers, really being forced out of the market.
God, I guess so. We've heard a lot about EV inventory building rapidly. Talk to us about that.
I mean, that's sort of the big story. I mean, ending Q2, which is the number of EVs on the ground, and there's no doubt there's more of those now than ever. When we talk about EVs a year ago, there were maybe 10,000 in inventory, and today we're talking of over 80,000 in inventory. So the number of EVs, they've gone up significantly, and everyone's starting to say, do Americans not want EVs? Is this sort of the pushback that's coming? And I don't necessarily see it that way. I'll say there's really three factors driving what's going on, and one of which is there's a lot of pull ahead volume to Q1. You remember when the IRA was launched, there was kind of a heyday in there, right? Everyone was buying up all the EVs in Q1. Well, we're paying for that a bit in Q2 here. The other thing, of course, is Tesla's been lowering prices so radically that they're attracting a lot of they're sucking the air out of the room for EVs still.
Wow.
Their share is up. And then finally, of course, we get into this new standard, right? I mean, you've heard about the changing of the EV standard to the new plugs, right? But what's on lots is all the vehicles with the other plugs, the technology we're doing away with. And so there may be some consumers on the sidelines as well, not wanting to buy, the end of the old standard of charging.
Right. That's right.
Right when if you wait, you can get open to the whole Tesla network, and so a lot of consumers may be factoring that in as well. So there's reasons that may explain this away.
You're going to start seeing OEMs put some heavy money on the hoods of those cars to get rid of them, right?
Right, and money, maybe marketing dollars as well.
Yeah.
The idea of putting an adapter in as an incentive. Hey,
Sure.
we will help you, future-proof your car. With EVs, we talk so much about how they're future-proof because we can do these over-the-air updates for the software and the platform, right? But we can't OTA a new plug for your car. So we've got to be proactive, I think, with that right now, with managing the transition to this one standard, which will be great when we get there, right? The last thing we want is to have cars be like our cell phones where we have to carry around 6 different connectors and adapters to be able to charge when we need to. And so hopefully we'll be able to manage that, but it's going to take marketing and quite honestly, to your point, may take some incentives to move these vehicles.
That's right. Don't you think they're already working on like a 1 year or 2 year or maybe a 50,000 mile battery? And when that happens, it's going to be all hell will break loose where it's okay. If I can be assured that my battery is going to last for 25 or 50,000 miles and I don't have to worry about a charge, I'm all in, right? I mean, I know it's a little bit down the road, but don't you think that that's where this is headed?
I haven't heard those distances. Those would be fantastic. I mean,
maybe I'm a little bit aggressive on that.
Yeah, but certainly the idea of solid state batteries and improving the chemistry that we use for batteries in the future to get us out to, not just that batteries that could go 800-900 miles on a charge, but it can also charge very rapidly without really degrading the battery performance over time. I mean, that's sort of the holy grail. Many are working toward it. It seems like it's an inevitability, but it's still a ways out on the horizon. In the meantime, the EVs that are out there, apologies if I'm a bit of an EV evangelist here. I know many of your listeners may be doubting them still, but what I like about EVs is it's almost like no matter what are you into? Are you into high performance cars? They do that. Are you into the environment? They do that. Are you into saving money? They do that. Are you into not wanting to go to a gas station? I mean, they do so many different things, and the innovations that are coming. I mean, you get in these EVs and you see the technology we're bringing and how cool things can be. We haven't scratched the surface yet on EVs, so I'm optimistic. I think it's a rough patch. It's not going to be a straight glide path to the future, but we will be moving there.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask on behalf of the viewers, do you drive an EV?
I have a plug-in, so I'm still have my EV training wheels on.
There you go. There you go. But the next one, it sounds like will be an EV.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm at the point, Jim, where I'm thinking, what is the last ICE I'm going to get? I recently drove the BMW M2. I can't stop talking about it. That may be the last ICE vehicle I ever owned, but I do have a plug-in. And my family loves it. I mean, once you start learning, every morning you wake up and you're going to have that charge. If you have a range of 275 or 300 miles, if you have a charger at your house or off-street parking, and you can charge a vehicle overnight, every day you wake up with that. And that's the EV real superpower, is you always have that range. Now, I get you can't go out of town as easily. It requires advanced planning and other things to road trip, but there's so many things that they can do, and I think the future is bright. It's just, it's going to be a rocky road to get there.
And now you see retailers like Target and others that have said, look, we're going to embrace this. You can, we'll have all of the charging stations right here. So it's, it really is something. I don't know if you've been to a Target lately where you've seen these huge charging pods, or maybe a whole line of parking spots that are committed to the charging stations, but people are sitting in their cars and they're just sipping on a cup of Starbucks or something while their car charges. It's pretty cool.
I say Target probably hopes they're doing more than sitting in their cars,
and they're doing that too. They're shopping in Target, so it's
Yeah.
I think it's a win-win. But Tyson Jominy, Vice President of Data and Analytics for JD Power, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks, Jim. Always a pleasure.
Thanks.